Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in wa man ittaba'ahum bi ihsani ila yawmiddin, amma ba'd. To proceed. Today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we want to begin our series of tutorials in which we will explain and introduce a few core exercises that we have selected for the purpose of strengthening our body, improving our fitness, and developing our confidence. Now, each of these exercises that we've selected has certain characteristics, and they're very important. They've been selected for the reason of they're easy to perform. So they can be performed within the comfort of your home. It doesn't require you having to exit to go to a particular place to get changed and so on and so forth. All of that is dispensed with. It can be done at home, which means that the barrier or the obstacle that's going to prevent you from doing this on a regular basis will be, inshallah ta'ala, removed. So, one of practicality. Two, the exercises that we've selected are designed primarily to work both your heart, so they have a cardiovascular or an aerobic benefit, and in addition to that, to work your body, whether it's the upper or the lower part, and in certain instances both, so they have an anaerobic benefit. The third is that each of these exercises can be performed within a very short period of time. It doesn't require a long time. And of course, that should be how exercise ought to be organized. It's not something which is our ghaya or our objective in life. It's a wasila, a means to obtain an objective, the objective being ta'abbudullah, the worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla. As we explained in our introduction, this subject is of extreme importance. We mention numerous ayat and ahadith that illustrates the excellence of strength and the consequences, invariably the negative consequence of weakness and being feeble. Therefore, to begin, we have selected as our first exercise the punch bag. As you can see, this is a standing punch bag. It's one that you can place upon the floor as opposed to hanging on the wall, even though I prefer the ones that hang on the wall. This is something that I purchased in order that I could just place in any room I wanted. They're not as good as the ones that you can hang. However, the benefit is that you can move it around. In addition to that, these types of bags have a solid core, so they tend to be harder upon the hands, which isn't necessarily a good thing. It does mean you need additional protection. Why did we select the bag first, apart from it being my favorite exercise? Because it fulfills two of the goals of exercise. One, it has an aerobic benefit, so it strengthens the heart, pumping oxygenated blood around the body. And secondly, it strengthens your upper body and it provides you with functional strength. So it works your arms, your shoulders, your chest, to a lesser extent your back and your legs. The upper body, the arms, the limbs here, these are required in order for you, as the hadith states of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri, "Man ra'a minkum munkaran falyughayyirhu biyadi," that whoever amongst you sees a munkar, that which is evil, then let him change it with his hand. If your hand is weak, if your arm is feeble, that becomes much more difficult. The hadith where Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anhu narrated that the man came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, "Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, ara'ayta in ja'a rajulun yurid akhdha mali." He said, "O Messenger of Allah, what do you say about a man who comes and wants to take my wealth?" The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Fala tutihi malak." Do not give it to him. He said, "Ara'ayta in qatalani." What do you say if he should fight against me? He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Qatilhu," fight against him. Fighting primarily, even though if you can resolve it through peaceful negotiations, that's better. But if you can't, and you're compelled by virtue of this individual wants to transgress against you, you're compelled to defend yourself, then invariably it's done with the hands and the arms. Therefore, they have to be strengthened. This bag helps you to do this. Before we begin, two things. One, I want to demonstrate how we hit a bag, the basic punches and the techniques involved. But before we do that, of course, we need protection on our hands, because our hands are with us for the duration of our life. We don't want to ruin our hands by hitting something continuously, which is hard, and then that results in arthritis or other ailments regarding your bones and your knuckles. That's not our objective. Our objective is for this to be a means of us working our body, not destroying our hands. So what I use are gel wraps that are very convenient. You don't need the normal wrapping method around your hands and your wrists. These can simply be slipped on as demonstrated here, and then you take the belt and you wrap it tightly around your wrist, but not too tightly, in order to cut off the circulation, and there you have it. It's very quick to put on, and as a consequence to remove too. Useful as under padding for gloves, which, as I mentioned, very important when hitting a bag, particularly one with a solid core such as this. To continue, therefore, I want to demonstrate 4 types of punches that we will be using during the course of our training. The first is the left jab, which for me is the natural jab because I'm right-handed. If you happen to be the opposite, what they call southpaw, then you will be training your right hand to throw the jab. So the first is the left jab, the second is the right cross, the third is the left hook, and the fourth is the right hook. So we're going to keep it simple. There are only 4 punches here. The fifth, the normal fifth punch, which is the uppercut, cannot unfortunately be demonstrated on this type of bag. To begin then, the first one is the left jab. How do we execute a left jab? It ought to be remembered that I'm not a professional or an expert. I'm just somebody who has been hitting a bag for a long period of time. So I understand the concept of doing it, and I understand the way to do it in order to derive a benefit from it. And that's what we're here to do, derive a benefit. We're not here in order to attain a level and a level of proficiency and skill in striking a bag that enables us to continue and compete in a competition, so on and so forth. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is simply to use it as a means of training and strengthening our body. So how do we, in essence, execute the left jab? The stance is important. It enables us to move forward and backward quickly if we stand correctly. So how should we stand? Generally a nice comfortable position with our feet apart. That might not be entirely apparent with the way that the camera is situated, but have my feet slightly apart in a position where it's comfortable for me either to move forward or to move backwards quickly without too much effort. So you need to have a nice comfortable position before you execute a punch, in order that primarily you're not off balance and you fall over, because then you really will look rather stupid. So you need to have a nice comfortable position, and then you need to concentrate. Punching technique is based upon concentration. Why? Because you have to concentrate to make sure that your hand and your wrist are level or straight. You have to concentrate upon the target, so you execute it and you hit your target correctly. And then of course you have to concentrate because you want to follow some kind of reasonable technique. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you certainly want to have a good technique, a good form when you're throwing your punch. So left jab, therefore, is the staple punch in boxing, and when hitting a bag, it serves 2 functions or purposes. The first is that you use it to determine distance. So therefore, how do we do that? Right, my arm starts in this position. As you can see, it's pushed back at my side, behind my shoulder and back. So I concentrate upon my target, and then I attempt as quickly and as efficient as possible to strike my target, moving my hand at the point of impact so it turns, such as that. Now, you will be told by the professionals or the experts who do these things is that the punch should be a snap, which is fine. So you can snap it such as that. It can be snapped. However, in martial arts, they teach you to strike through the target. We want to compromise between striking through the target and snapping. So to demonstrate, therefore, we will be hitting the bag reasonably hard, reasonably quickly, and then returning our hand back to the original position. And they also state the importance of breathing, which is why I did. So that is a left jab. It serves two purposes. The first is distance. I know that if I can hit the bag here at this point, my second punch, which is the right cross, that needs to travel several inches more, I know that with a slight adjustment to my upper body and turning, I can then strike the opponent with a right cross, which is the real power punch. That is the first benefit. The second benefit, it's to keep your opponent at a distance. If you're constantly throwing the jab like this, the opponent, in this case the bag, of course that's not going to move, but your opponent has no option except to stay where they are or to retreat. If they're moving towards you and you're constantly hitting them with a jab, they're not going to come forward. That therefore is the left jab. Serves two purposes. One, to keep the opponent at a distance, and two, to measure distance for the right cross. The right cross, which is the second punch that we're going to demonstrate, that is the power punch. It's the one that's used to knock your opponent out, disable. How is it thrown? It's thrown by using the weight of your arm, your shoulder, and your back and your hips, which is the reason why it's a power punch. That's how you generate the power, through your entire body, from your hips to your back to your shoulder and to your arm. Because it's a power punch, it requires the most amount of energy, which is why ordinarily it's used sparingly. So you don't throw it as constantly and as consistently as you would the left jab. So to demonstrate the right cross, not particularly complicated. Again, you have a nice balance on both your legs, and you concentrate, you clench your fist. Remember to keep your wrist and your hand level in order that you don't damage your hand at the point of impact. And then, whilst concentrating upon your target, you move your body round and you throw the punch. So, concentrating, you move your body around and you throw the punch, such as like. Now, the right cross usually follows the left jab. So it's normal, therefore, to throw left and then right, to throw left and then right, throw left and then right. That's how we do it ordinarily. The third and the fourth punch, the left and the right hook. How do we throw these? The trainers will tell you that the objective is as though you're removing chunks from your bag. So you hit the bag in this fashion. So you can see the amount of movement or the angle of my arm is limited. And the purpose is as though you're removing segments from the bag on the left and on the right. in effect, you could argue you're grazing the bag. That is how they will describe it. However, if you want to increase the angle so the point of impact is greater and therefore the damage is increased, then there's no harm in doing that. So you can have a close left jab such as this, or you can have a much wider one such as that. And on the right, it's a close one, and it's a one which is further away. Those are the 4 punches that we will be using to demonstrate how to work on the bag. The other point to note before we do our 2-minute round, which is the method that I use to train, is that the professionals and the experts, when you see them working on the bag, you'll notice that one, they throw very few punches. So there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of waiting. They're waiting for an opening to appear. We won't be doing any of that. For us, or for myself, I will be primarily stationary. Why? Not that I don't agree with the moving, but first, it's difficult in this confined area. But secondly, and more importantly, my objective is I have 2 minutes with this bag. I want to inflict as much punishment upon this bag as possible. I can see my target. I want to vanquish my enemy. Therefore, I'm going to try and hit this bag as frequently and with as much power as possible. I'm going to take as little break as possible. That is the best method of offense. That you strike your opponent as frequently and as hard as possible. As for all this moving around and waiting for an opening and then throwing combinations and retreating, our purpose is not to train for some kind of competition where you're awarded points for striking your opponent in a particular fashion. Our purpose, as I mentioned, is as a means to increase our worship of Allah through performing those actions that can be facilitated by a strengthened body. This is very important to nurture and raise our children and ourselves upon this way. In addition to the correct belief and practice, an individual must be in a position to be able to defend themselves, their family, their property, and any other person who is being transgressed against. In order to fulfill that objective today, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we start with our bag. What we're going to demonstrate therefore is a 2-minute workout on the bag, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. The gloves that I will be using are these 14-ounce well padded gloves, again for the purpose of additional protection. You can get lighter gloves, but they provide less protection. I prefer more, even though they're heavier, because, as I said, the core of this bag is solid, and after several rounds you do begin to feel it upon your hands. So these are my trusty 14-ounce gloves. You will find, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, after you have completed several rounds on the bang, which doesn't take a long time, two great benefits. The first is your heart will be forced to work at a much higher rate than it would ordinarily. And two, you will find the stress and the fatigue developing in your shoulders, your arms, to a lesser extent your chest, your back and your legs, all of which over a prolonged period of time will strengthen them, increase their stamina, their ability to work, and therefore boost your confidence, enabling you to perform those actions that are required in order to perfect your deen, your worship of Allah Azza wa Jalla. We therefore hope, inshallah ta'ala, that you accept this advice in a manner that it was sincerely conveyed, and understand that this is the first of a series of tutorials in which we will be introducing a series of fundamental core exercises that we hope will benefit you in this world, a result of which you will see in the hereafter. والله أعلم. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المؤمنين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.